Hey guys, welcome to the Sim Racing Paddock. I'm William Marsh, and here is our review on Forza Motorsport 7. This is the latest in Microsoft's flagship racing series developed by Turn 10 Studios. This is also the first full Forza Motorsport title to be released for the PC under the Universal Windows platform. There was a lot of promising news regarding improvements to Forza feedback and the physics in Forza 7. In addition, Turn 10 was also stating that Forza 7 will take advantage of PC hardware and will be a full-featured PC title. The question is, does it live up to the promise? Let's find out. I would go out to say this time around, the PC version of Forza 7 is the definitive version of the title. In the past, the previous games such as Forza 6, Apex, and Forza Horizon 3 felt slightly gimped compared to console versions in my opinion, but for once, the PC version feels like a solid improvement over the console counterpart. The most notable feature added to the title is support for multiple USB input devices as well as non-Xbox compatible devices. For example, I was able to configure my Hussey-Belt Engineering Sim Pedals Pro and run it with the Fanatec Club Sport Wheel V2.5 to make it work well. I do have to mention that you have to manually calibrate those pedals due to the fact that Forza 7 does not use direct input drivers, but they use UWP drivers. So you have to take that extra step to manually calibrate the pedals. Once you do so, it works well and you're likely not going to have to do it again. One other exciting feature is there is now support for triple screen setups. It does come with a bit of a caveat though. It is not true triple screen support where it renders each screen separately. As a result, the sides can seem stretched. This is something that is seen in other titles such as Codemasters Racing titles, Race Room Racing Experience, etc. It is definitely less than ideal, which is a shame, because Turn 10 added a new driver camera angle which removes the steering wheel and gives an almost perfect field of view for triples. Also worth mentioning is the lack of virtual reality support, which is disappointing but not exactly surprising. The graphics for Forza Motorsport 7 range from good to downright stunning. The car models look great, have realistic animations, and look believable in motion. The tracks are where the graphics tend to shine though. There's this sense of atmosphere around the track where you see life happening. You see planes and helicopters fly around the track, you see smoke at campsites, you hear crowds cheering, and the announcer talking through the PA system. The graphics are a truly immersive experience, and it's also fairly well optimized. I tested with an NVIDIA GTX 970 and a 1080. The 970 I was able to get high settings, and then with the 1080 I was able to get ultra and stay above the 60 frames per second mark, even running with triple screens. Now all these new features are good and all, but let's talk about really what matters, how the title performs, and let's start with the physics. The physics in Forza 7 are surprisingly decent. The cars behave realistically. The cars seem to differentiate alright between types of cars, and all in all, it feels like a believable Simcade title. It's not perfect. It feels like the tires have a bit too much bite in my opinion, especially under sliding, but at the very least, the cars behave in a mostly predictable fashion. It feels better than Forza Motorsport 6 in terms of physics. However, the improvements in the physics I feel are somewhat overshadowed by incredibly lackluster force feedback. For the claims that improvements were being made with wheels, I kind of have yet to feel it. The force feedback feels downright dead around center and on the road surface. When you get to the rumble strips and off track, it feels slightly better, but in a racing title, you're not really supposed to be driving off the track now, are you? Note that my testing consisted of the Thrustmaster TS XW wheel, Thrustmaster T500 RS, and the Fanatec Club Sport wheel version 2.5. I did some limited testing with the Logitech G920 at Sonoma Raceway, and that admittedly felt the best out of those four. However, it is disappointing to see that the Thrustmaster and Fanatec wheels are struggling a little more than I anticipated. Hopefully a future patch will improve the force feedback, but for now it's rather disappointing with a wheel. Another gripe I have is that the title does not automatically adjust the degrees of rotation for the car you're driving, and will just utilize the degrees of rotation that you have for the wheel. I'll just say, driving an Indy car with 900 degrees of rotation feels incredibly dull. Turn it down to 540 degrees and you're going to have a better feeling, but then you're going to have issues with the wheel not visually matching in-game. Fortunately, as mentioned before, there is a new angle that does eliminate the wheel, but some people may just prefer the cockpit angle, and this would be a major gripe with them. So Forza 7 has some decent physics betrayed by subpar force feedback and the wheel mechanics, but it's actually pretty decent driving with the gamepad. The controls feel solid, it feels kind of made for the gamepad. It almost feels like the wheel was a bit of an afterthought, but at least for people who want to drive with the gamepad, it feels pretty good. So let's address the next question. How's the racing? First, let's address the AI. The AI is passable. At best, I've seen some decent side-by-side action. At worst, I've had some truly horrible AI racing experience, almost as bad as the first Project Cars. The cars can get really bunched up in the first corner, causing traffic jams, impacts, and various damage and issues. The AI seems to lack situational awareness most of the time, totally willing to hit you as you're racing with them. Also, the AI is kinda slow as well. While driving at the Pro difficulty, which I believe is 1 or 2 steps below max difficulty, I was finishing a good 15 to 20 seconds ahead of the drivers in a 10-lap race. Now, I'm not the best driver. You've seen my driving. I'm not the best driver. But finishing 15 to 20 seconds at hard difficulty, that's kind of iffy. Now, let's talk about damage, and I'm going to keep this simple. If you've experienced damage in Forza 6, you've experienced it in Forza 7. The damage is okay, maybe not sensitive enough, but it does authentically damage parts. You can't have terminal damage like a blown engine or wheels falling off, but the car can do damage to a point where it is essentially undrivable. Next question, how is the career mode in Forza 7? And it's somewhat disappointing to say it's largely the same as previous titles. You select a series, take part in a few events, and then move on to the next series. There is a new code where it's like the Forza Racing Championship, but it largely is the same. There isn't too much in the way of dynamic race events, there's still no practice in qualifying either. Races are still short by default, but you can make them longer. Nice touch is longer races will grant you more rewards. For example, I ran a longer race, I believe is around 30 laps, and I went up 3 levels and gained around 100,000 credits due to that extended race. But all in all, I feel that they could have done more with the career mode. It's not horrible, but I think they could have done more. Now let's touch on what I think the best part of Forza 7 is, and that is the car and track roster. Forza 7 has a list of over 700 cars and around 32 tracks. I enjoy the wide majority of the circuits that are in the game, including the welcome return of Maple Valley Speedway, which is what I feel is one of the best fictional Forza Motorsport circuits. Laser scan versions of tracks like Mugello, Brands Hatch, Long Beach, and the Nürburgring really shine. You can really tell they are authentic and close to real-life counterparts. And also, I think some of the non-laser scanned tracks, like I don't think Sonoma is laser scanned, but it's still remarkably accurate. The car list is excellent, and one of the things I truly enjoy about Forza Motorsport is the customization of cars and the culture that forms around them. In addition to the tuning and aftermarket parts, features such as the auction house and painting and vinyls are in as well. That is one thing Forza has done very well, and this is no exception. If I had one gripe, it feels like there's nothing really new that's brought to the table with the customization, and it just feels the same as Forza Motorsport 6. One other thing I want to talk about is the sounds in Forza Motorsport 7. The interior sounds for cars are pretty solid. I think the exterior sounds for the cars are kind of lackluster. Another thing is that I think some of the cars have incorrect sounds. For example, the NASCAR stock cars use somewhat of a generic V8 sound. I've heard some cars with a V8 almost sound like a V10 engine, and I understand they're going for quantity over quality, but I would have loved to see these finer touches made. The last thing I want to touch on before I go to my pros and cons is the weather and time progression system. The unfortunate truth about it is that while it is being marketed as dynamic weather, I don't exactly feel that's the case, especially when other titles handle dynamic weather well. What Turn 10 Studios calls dynamic weather is more like a scripted weather system. The race will start off dry, progress to rain, and then stop raining. That is how every rain race I ran went, save for one race in career. The weather will scale to the race, but generally 1/3 of the way through the race, the rain will pick up. Then at the 2/3 mark, the rain will stop. And then the last third is just driving on a drying track. That's what I found, and it's slightly frustrating. I would have at least enjoyed the possibility to have a race with full rain myself. So, with that being said, let's get on to my pros and cons, and as usual, let's start with the pros. Physics feel improved over Forza 6. Some of the best graphics in a racing game to date. Car and track roster is great. Car customization is solid. Laser scan circuits are quite close to reality, and it handles fairly well with the gamepad. Here are my cons. Wheel force feedback and mechanics are subpar and defeats the purpose of improved physics. The AI feels more like a roadblock than active opponents. Some sounds for the cars are hit or miss. Dynamic weather feels more like a scripted gimmick. No practice in qualifying sessions is still disappointing. Career mode feels like the same to-do list of races to do. Doesn't feel like a significant jump in features compared to Forza 6. So let's get to the bottom line. Do I recommend Forza 7? Well, I'm in a kind of conflicted situation. Forza 7 as a game, I really enjoy. It's a full-featured game and I've actually enjoyed it with the gamepad. However, as a sim, it really does fall flat compared to better titles such as Project Cars 2, Assetto Corsa, R-Factor 2, and so on. So I'll ask you this question. Are you more into the idea of car customization, tweaking a car, doing engine or drivetrain swaps, or are you more enamored by simulation of a full race weekend? If the first is more your thing and you're alright with less than perfect force feedback or going with the gamepad, then I think you'll enjoy Forza 7. If you're more into the simulation side, I may suggest going elsewhere. However, Forza 7 is a solid game and I've enjoyed it quite a bit. So I hope you guys enjoyed my review on Forza Motorsport 7. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you enjoyed it so far? What do you think about the force feedback? Let us know. Also, if you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe buttons down below and help keep us on track. For the Sim Racing Paddock, I'm William Marsh, and you have a great rest of your day.